got to think about Bitcoin and gold differently, but related but not related, right? It's optimism in the future and in the sort of tech boom that's coming. I think that's partly what's fueling the crypto rise. You look at the price of Bitcoin right now, and it just blows me away. I mean, we're going to be at Bitcoin 100K in no time, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we came within a few $100 earlier, so we're basically there. And so it's been a, as we anticipated, it'd be a very positive. Trump's victory would be a positive development for Bitcoin. I think a lot of people who are kind of widely followed commenters on Bitcoin were kind of hedging their bets and didn't want to, overemphasize how good victory would be for Bitcoin, because what if he didn't win? That would kind of imply downside, But it's really quite positive in that, Trump has just been very explicit in terms of his understanding or his perception that Bitcoin is a positive for the U.S. economy, for the U.S. financial system, should be embraced. We should look to utilize Bitcoin within our economy and see it as a growth industry. So it's Bitcoin, but it's also, other tokens, right? Other forms of
Ethereum, for example, has been going up as well. Let me play you. Go ahead.
No, I just say, like the appointments, Howard Lutnick as Commerce Secretary, he's been he's personally, he's mentioned I saw something on the internet where he owns hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. So he's a big believer in crypto assets. His firm is, just actually hosted a big crypto AI conference down in Florida, Cantor Fitzgerald. So, he's been on the leading edge, and he'll have a pivotal role in terms of, our policies towards like a digital assets framework and really kind of, moving the ball forward in terms of legitimizing and institutionalizing these digital assets.
Let me play for you just a quick clip of Michael Saylor here. He and I spoke recently. Michael Saylor is the CEO of course, let me see if I can pull it up. Hang on one second. I don't want to overpromise. You can also check out the entire interview on 76 Research if you're interested in hearing a little bit more from Michael Saylor. But anyway, it's struggling here a little bit. So, my tech skills are sometimes rather lacking. Here we go. Jockeying for who's going to be the currency of the world, so to speak, and the dollar comes under pressure. Is Bitcoin the answer, do you think? Is that the currency of the world for the future? And does it undermine or threaten the hegemonic power of the United States?
Yeah, I don't think Bitcoin threatens the U.S. I think Bitcoin is strengthening the U.S. I think that if you look at all the currencies in the world, the strongest currency in the world is the dollar. And so everybody in the world has either got a weaker currency, which is collapsing, or they're on the dollar standard. Like the euro is pretty much pegged to the dollar, the Singapore, the DROM, most of the quote unquote good currencies, the Swiss franc, et cetera, they're pretty much pegged to the dollar. And then the bad currencies, the weak currencies, the peso, the naira, Egyptian pounds, Lebanese pounds, Turkish lira, they're collapsing against the dollar. So it seems pretty clear that the dollar will continue to spread, but there is an inflation problem. The inflation rate in dollars is not the CPI. It's not 2 or 3%.
So that's interesting. Again, we're just listening to Michael Saylor, who I did a rather extensive interview with, and you can watch the entire thing on the channel on 76 Research. But what struck me is, there is this consensus that it's not going to replace the dollar. Like some people worry, and I'm sure if you're watching this right now, you're like, wait a second, we don't want a digital currency. We like our dollars. We want to keep our dollars. Walk us through sort of the mechanics of that. Like people do worry about that for sure. Both Donald Trump and of course, Michael Saylor, who's I think the world's largest Bitcoin owner. Right. So he's certainly, both his company and he himself, he's got a lot at stake there, but he's insisting that this is something that's really complementary to and will help propel the U.S. to continue its financial hegemonic status.
Yep. Yeah, and I think maybe Satoshi himself, if he even exists, is the largest Bitcoin holder or something, right? But no, Michael Saylor is really like the prominent voice, the preeminent voice, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
in Bitcoin world. If you're worried about the the idea of a the dollar becoming a digital dollar,
Mm-hmm.
and the kind of in the way that the Chinese want to do that, I think you should actually look at what's happening with Bitcoin in terms of the Trump administration's favorable view of it. You should look at that positively, because Bitcoin is a decentralized digital asset. It's not controlled by any government. It's not something that could be weaponized against the people or become a surveillance tool, right? So, what's happening here is the Trump administration is supporting a decentralized cryptocurrency to become kind of the main store of value, the main digital asset within the cryptocurrency space, rather than looking to have a digital dollar. But I think Saylor's real point, and it's an important one for people to start. People really need, in general, to start understanding Bitcoin, because there's going to be a lot of changes to our financial system, and it's being rapidly incorporated so into our financial system. And I think Saylor's point is that Bitcoin actually functions as like a conduit for global capital to access the U.S. economy and to access the U.S. financial system. So if you think about it in terms of it, like works with the dollar, and maybe it's a way for the U.S. dollar to kind of maintain its status as the world's kind of reserve currency, because it's a way for people in every country, regardless of, so long as they have internet access, they can access Bitcoin. And if they can access Bitcoin, they can access the U.S. financial
Right. Well, it's
system.
priced in dollars. I mean, I've never really understood it when, people that are really, and listen, I've been following this forever. I was a big champion of it back when it was $10. I wish I bought it when it was $10, but I was just fascinated by this. And it's just, in theory, it's really, really cool, but I would keep coming back to it, it's priced in dollars. So I don't know as you entirely, what you're doing is you're creating a store of value that is so much more efficient, right, than anything else we got going on right now. And the ability to transact with that store of value 24/7, 365 days a year is really phenomenal. You and I both heard, I was introducing Michael Saylor at a recent conference, and I know you were there, and we both heard him speak outside of the interview. But one of the things that struck me, and the reason I wanted to interview him, was in hearing him talk about it, I love this idea that, you could access capital markets at all times, whenever, Sunday at 2 a.m, you could get access to financial instruments. And that's not the way it is right now. Like when the market closes, the market's closed. And in my case, if I'm, investing in an ETF in Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's all over the place over the weekend, I can't do anything about it. I can't do anything until the market opens on Monday at 9:30 a.m. And what you have the potential to do is completely sort of transform financial markets in a really compelling, fascinating, interesting way, which to me is sort of mind-blowing and is in tandem with the whole tech revolution that's going on in terms of AI, electrification, and all that's coming our way.
Yeah, and that's what gets us back to this idea of a digital assets framework. So, our capital markets are really based on like legislation that's like 100 years old, and like the kind of like the 40 Act, and right, it's from an analog world, and it's. I actually heard Saylor speaking recently where he made, and this is something we talked about, like in the context of the Texas Stock Exchange, how, we've had this like declining number of public companies in the United States because it's just so onerous and difficult and problematic to be a listed public company. And it's like everything else, and Saylor made this point, everything else in the world goes up and to the right. The growth in the number of TVs in a house, TVs or cars or population or money or wealth, the price of gold, everything goes up except the number of public companies in the United States is like declining. Why is that? Right? That's a broken system. So this digital assets framework is really all about, using technology to create more opportunity for companies to access capital, so that, it's not, and it may not just be Bitcoin eventually that you can buy on a Sunday morning or sell on a Sunday morning, but maybe, tokenized shares of stock that, so we're not beholden to this kind of ancient technology in terms of like stock exchanges with specified opening and closing, right? Where we've kind of digitalized the entire capital markets.
It's really, I mean, I know, and if I look at some of the comments, I know you guys are reluctant, but you know what? I'm just going to say, trust me. I mean, be careful with what you're investing. I should point out, we did not put this in any of our model portfolios, but we have said to people that this is a very compelling, unique investment. I joke around and say it's sort of like schmuck insurance. Like you need to make sure, put a little bit in, because if Michael Saylor's right and it goes to 13 million by 2040, what is it, 2045? Do I have that right?
45 or so, yeah.
Yeah, which is sort of like max, you're not going to be able to mine any more Bitcoin at that point. Then you want to have this. But again, it's the framework of the system that we all are relying on. And listen, I sure as heck want to make sure that the USA is way out in front when it comes to our financial markets. This is why, for example, getting Scott in at Treasury was important. Having Howard at Commerce is really important. And having a president who's receptive, I think, to the newest technologies on this crypto framework is really important. And he is. And I don't think the other side would have ever gotten that. If anything, Elizabeth Warren's just always freaking out. Kamala Harris wanted to create new guidelines. I mean, specifically, actually, it was strange for African-American men as it relates to crypto, and also weed, right? That was kind of one. Her proposal was a little scattered, but I think the bottom line here is this is something that's important to watch. I know it's scary. I'm not saying put, everything you got, anything, certainly don't, but I think be aware of it and know that it's going to go up and down and all over the place. But this probably is an important part of our future in some way.
Yeah, look, it's
Peace of My Mind. We love Peace of My Mind. He's one of our very first subscribers here on 76 Research. He's making the point, I still don't understand, or she, that why can't they mine more Bitcoin? And I guess what you need to know about this, and again, I'm not a computer person, but there's only so much out there. Satoshi Nakamoto only planted, so to speak, so much Bitcoin out there. So the algorithms get increasingly difficult to be able to solve for them, to be able to mine it, because it becomes increasingly more precious as time goes on. It's really cool. It's a great white paper if you want to read something this weekend besides investinmaga.com. And it's kind of just mind blowing, but that's the theory anyway. Peace of My Mind. That's why it becomes more precious as time goes on.
Yeah. And mining is really like a bit of a metaphor. It's not actually being mined. What's happening is, all of these computer systems around the world are sort of, they're getting rewarded with Bitcoin in order to verify the network and to support the security and stability and activity of the network. So it's like a computer protocol, and there's an artificial limit at 21 million Bitcoin, and then at that point, this verification gets rewarded through transaction fees, which is a topic of that. That's sort of a subtopic of Bitcoin that if you really want to start getting into the weeds, but no, it's an extraordinary technological invention.
I want to say to Cat Crazy, who's watching us, one of our regulars here, who points out back in the day, if you bought Bitcoin, they'd recommend you print a copy as proof of purchase. And I'll just tell you a funny story, because one of my friends actually, who worked at Bloomberg at the time, actually was quite close to Elon Musk. He did a lot of reporting on Elon and was really into Bitcoin like I was. But he had the smarts to go out and purchase the Bitcoin. And he did it as kind of a joke for me and one of my co-hosts at Bloomberg. And one day he presented it to me and I was like, oh, that's great. And then no sooner did he present it than my co-host took the code, right? The Q code or whatever it is, forgive me, I'm really showing my lack of tech, but you know the code thing that they have, and showed it to the camera. And within seconds, our Bitcoin was gone. It would have been worth a lot, right? Compared to where it was back then. This was like, it was $10. And so that sort of demonstrated the fragility in some ways of it, like the code is everything. And, you know, I think I always remember that, but you have to kind of keep that private. But Cat Crazy talking about the proof of purchase, and the code was part of that.
Yeah. You know, I saw a meme today with the pizza day guy, the guy who sold like, what was it? Like 1,000 Bitcoin or something for 2 pizzas, and were used. It's like, would have been worth 900 billion now. So don't feel so bad. You could be that guy who's,
that's so funny. TCC says to me, answer that phone. It's Trump. I didn't get Treasury Secretary, but maybe I could get the Fed. What do you think?
Go hold out for that. Yeah.
I'm teasing. Anyway, I love seeing all you guys here, and Rob, you know, it's a good time. It's an exciting time. I am full of optimism in a way that I just haven't been in a long time. So I'm always generally optimistic and glass half full, and I can always see the sunny positive side in anything. But right now, there's a lot of reasons to be excited. And it's all for this economy, our growth, and the potential. I encourage everybody to go over to investinmaga.com. I had it up. It disappeared on me, but investinmaga.com or 76research.com to get more information. It's all free at investinmaga.com. Totally free. And, you know, a little bit of worthwhile reading for you as you think about how to approach these markets. And I get it, Bitcoin's not for everyone, but there's a lot of opportunity in other spaces that are really going to see, I suspect, and Rob suspects, a lot of growth in the coming 4 years. So have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Thank you for being here. Go over to 76 Research, investinmaga.com, and we will see you there.